Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. My name is Lucille and I've recently moved from France to Canada. Lately I've been uploading reading journal videos, but today I wanted to show you what I've been doing in my Commonplace book. And the first portion of the video is going to be about the Commonplace book I finished in France, and the second part is going to be about the new Commonplace book I made. Initially, I had filmed those clips to include them in my reading journal videos because I was writing down quotes I had found in some of the latest books I had read. So Envers et contre tout was in my March reading journal update video, I think. They will be linked in the description anyway. And I had a lot of quotes about it. Envers et contre tout is the memoirs of Efrosinia Karnavskaya. She spent 40 years in the Gulag and she illustrated as well as wrote about her experience. And this was such an amazing read. And so I made a reading journal spread about it, but I still wanted to have the quotes someplace else because I didn't have enough space in my reading journal. So I chose to use my Commonplace book. I've had a Commonplace book since last year, I think. I started one again after I've watched a lot of Megan Rhiannon's videos, and that's when I realized that I already had a Commonplace book in the past. If you don't know what it is, a Commonplace book is generally considered to be a book where you can collect quotes, your thoughts about things, what you think about articles, information you find interesting. And for me, Commonplace books are a place where I can put all the knowledge I want to gather, all the things I want to understand, definitions of words, like history bits, quotes, etc. This was in March, I think. I had not touched that Commonplace book for a little while, but then when I started copying those quotes, I went on a Commonplace binge and I used it so much that I finished that Commonplace book before I left for Canada. My spreads are very simple. I just printed some illustrations from the book as well as the cover, and I put that on the page. You saw me fussy cutting around the outline of the mountains because I thought it would look good. I liked it so much that I decided to use it in my reading journal. And I want my Commonplace pages to be very simple. I don't want to have many colors or many illustrations. So that's why I'm only using black and grey ink in that page. And I'm alternating between black and grey because if it's written in just one color, I find it very confusing for my brain. So I started using both those pens and alternating between them when I thought that a sentence needed a bit more attention. As I was working in my Commonplace book, I started getting back the habits I had when I was at university, when I was taking notes. That is to say, underlining stuff, circling stuff, simplifying text. I'm not sure how interesting that video is going to be because I don't have a lot of decorations to do, I don't have a lot of stationery I'm going to talk about, and I finished my spread about Envers et contre tout and I wanted to write the quotes I had found in the series Elana by Pierre Bottero. I've talked about this series in my previous reading journal videos, and I had less quotes for this first novel, but I had also read volume 2 and 3, so I included them in the spread. And as you can see, I have a page of dot stickers, and I've been using those dots to classify what I put in my Commonplace book, and it's something I've taken from Megan Rhiannon. I wanted dots that were small and that had soft colors, but I was ready to buy like one with bright colors if I could find them in person. But when I started to work on that Commonplace book again, I could not find smaller dots, and I could find smaller dots, but they were only in one colors, or you had to buy several packs to get several colors, and this was such a waste. So I ended up ordering the dots from Amazon, and I will have the link in the description if it's still available. I really like them. They have a very soothing color, and there are several colors, so that's nice to have several categories in my commonplace book. As you can see at the top of the screen, I have this little index card where I've written down what the dots correspond to, and I didn't want to write it on a page in the notebook because I wanted to be able to take it out and look at it when I was working. I usually use paperclip and attach the dots to the index card so I have everything in one place. I did that legend last year and not a lot of planning or thought went into it. As I was writing in my commonplace book and I was creating new categories, I just wrote them down next to the dots. The colors don't really mean anything, so green has been associated with history, light purple is art, blue is music, kind of pink coral is literature, that means quotes and also definitions. The orange ones is labeled as immigration because when I started that commonplace book, I was in my immigration process to come to Canada and I needed to write down stuff because it was really hard to understand the different options I had and all the information I had to learn. Yellow is contemporary history, darker purple is sociology, and I called it sociology because I wasn't really sure how to call it. I have a spread about a law in France I did not understand, and it seemed weird to be in contemporary history or in history, like all the history, so that's what I did. And the last lighter blue dot did not have any category because I did not need it. The meaning of the dots will change as the video progresses because I will add more spreads, I will have new needs, I will change what the colors mean, and I will change them on the index card, and I will go back and remove the dots and replace them. They're good enough quality that it's a bit of a fuss to remove the dots, but it doesn't damage the page, so it's fine. I've now finished writing down all the quotes I wanted, and I had been tidying up some of the magazine clippings I kept. My parents had given me some magazines they wanted to put in the recycling, so I went through them and I found some interesting stuff. And because I was wanting to write in my commonplace book, I decided to do some research. The first page I'm doing is about Marie Marvin. She was a pilot in the 1920s, and I found out about her in an ad for an exhibition. There was only a few lines about her saying that she was a pilot during World War I, and I got intrigued, and I discovered that she was the first woman to get a pilot degree, and her life was fascinating, so I went on to basically copy her biography in French. I took notes as I would have done at university, simplifying information, using abbreviations and circling dates as I've been saying, and this was so fascinating that you will see in the rest of the videos that I did several other pages about contemporary women who also got their pilot's degree, and this was amazing. I was going through my stack of magazine clippings and this review for a movie got me interested. It was a movie where Maria Montessori played an important role, and it's a French movie if I'm not mistaken, and it looked very interesting. I used the light purple lot to categorize it, and light purple had been so far for art, but I decided that it would include movies. I did a spread about an article that was talking about, is your daughter too young to put makeup on? And it can sound weird that I did a spread on that, but as I was reading the article, I reacted to the way they talked about makeup and about girls, and I wanted to write down my thoughts, and that's what I like about commonplace books. You can really expand on your thoughts, and even if it's not a lot of sentences you want to write, it still works. And as you can see at the end of my commonplace book, I have a little index that's very simple. This notebook doesn't have pages already printed on, so I just do it and I feel that it's fine. Now, as I was starting with that commonplace book, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when, for example, I had only done half a page about this graphic novel, but then I wanted to work on another subject and I didn't want to lose that half a page, because what would I write on that half a page? Should I wait to have another graphic novel to comment? Should I just keep it blank? It felt like it was a waste. So when I wanted to talk about another female pilot called Hélène Dutrieux, I just decided to use that half a page. But in my new commonplace book, I found another solution. And as you can see, I'm using a pink pen. Just before, I told you that I didn't want to write with a lot of colors and have very simple spreads, but I felt that as I was starting to write, the color came to me and I really wanted to use it, so I did. And the thing I did was to limit myself to one color per spread. And I also tried to have a little bit of a dynamic layout. So as you can see, I had a little information to write about someone else in the biography, someone I didn't want to have a full page on. So I did a little square, I used arrows, and I think that's a nice look. And now I am changing some of the dots I had done before. My first spread in the commonplace book was a page about what's a commonplace book, because I was so confused when I started my commonplace book. So I replaced the green dot by a yellow one. I replaced some other dots as well. It was really nice because as I was finishing that commonplace book, I was also finishing those two Muji pens, and I don't know why, but I'm always so excited when I finish pens. What I really like about those gel pens is that when you go to Muji or when you order from them, you can just buy the cartridges, so you can keep the body of the pen. And I already had replacement cartridges for my grey and black pens, so I was really excited to change them because I had been working on them for quite a while and this was so nice. Now, when I was doing my spreads, you didn't see it, but I measured a blank square that I didn't write on because I wanted to print a picture of the pilot, but I didn't want to stop commonplacing to look for the picture, put it on Canva and print it. So I waited to have several things to print and I kept spaces blank. I measured it, I then used the same measurements in Canva and printed everything after. As you can see, everything fell into place quite nicely. I'm using a roll tape to glue in my commonplace book because it's much easier than to use a glue stick. I used a page from Megan Rhiannon's book to add this last picture because I didn't have enough space to have it. I didn't know I wanted to use that picture, so I just put glue on the right side of the picture and use it as a little leaflet or as a little window, and I really like that look. I think it's much more resting than having some washi tape hinging the picture down, because the washi tape takes some space and it takes some visual brain power, so to speak. And as I was so engrossed into using my commonplace book, I watched a movie and I was like, I want to write something about it. But unlike my reading journal, I don't have a book that's dedicated to film reviews, so I thought I might as well use my commonplace book. And to be honest, I don't think that my film reviews belong in my commonplace book. I think I did it twice in that video, but for my next commonplace book, I won't be including them any longer. I've been thinking about doing a separate film reviews notebook, and I'm very excited about doing spreads and decorating them. The film I was talking about is Damsel, that came out in 2024. It is with Millie Bobby Brown, and it was with dragons. It sounded interesting, but I did not like it. It felt like it was a movie from the 2000s, which was, oh yay, feminism, a woman can fight a dragon and tear up her clothes, meaning that she's getting badass, and she was screaming so much when she was getting hurt, which is understandable, but the way she was screaming, sometimes it was the only sounds you would get in a scene, and it felt very like scream porn, like you would have in a Lara Croft movie, and it really put me ill at ease. I did not like that. The next spread I'm doing was not about a movie but about a series, and I wanted to talk about the third season of Veronica Mars. I've been loving watching Veronica Mars since I was a teenager, and at that time I had been rewatching the first three seasons, the movie, and the last season they did. I like it, but in the third season, Veronica Mars is at university. She's a guy's girl. She's so much more reasonable than those angry feminists, and you're basically supposed to root for her in the movie when she's talking down about the feminists, and this was a really weird perspective to have, and I think that this third season really aged badly. What I was doing at the end of that day was printing and cutting down some pictures I wanted to use on a spread, but I wasn't feeling like writing that day, so I wrote the next day. And who I was writing about was Louis-Joseph César Ducornet, who was a French painter. And at that point, I had used all of the magazine clippings that I could find, and I went into my internet browser where I have a commonplace book file where I save all the pages I want to write about. I had saved this like a year ago. I think Ducornet had been the subject of a Google Doodle. I'm not sure if it was only a doodle in France, but I was intrigued because it presented Ducornet as a painter that only used his feet to paint. So I decided to learn about him, and I was blown away by his paintings. So Ducornet was a painter from the early 19th century, and he had to learn to paint with his feet because he was born without arms. So I learned about his life. I learned about the specific reason why he did not have any arms, which led me to learn about more people from that time period that had a physical disability that set them apart for some reason in French society. And as I was writing down Ducornet's biography, I came about words I did not understand, so I decided to write them down. So I decided to go back to the beginning of my commonplace book where I remembered I had done a vocabulary page that was not finished, so I decided to add my words on that page. I removed immigration from my index cards because I had done all the research I needed. I knew I was going back to Canada and I didn't need that information. I used a paperclip to put those pages together because I wasn't going to read them back. And that way I had a new category that was empty that I could use how I wanted it. And the next page I did was for Marco Cazot. I learned about Marco Cazot, who was born in Venice and died in Paris in the 18th century, as I was working on the painter's page, and I was intrigued about his life, about what physical disability he had and how he was perceived at the time. So I did a page on him because there wasn't much information about him, so I couldn't do more. And then I worked on doing a spread about a set of caves found in Turkey that were inhabited for hundreds of years. As you can see, as I was writing down about sensory regulations, I was finishing up my commonplace book. And because I was finishing it, I wanted to use even the last page, even if it was near the index, because I really wanted to be using all of the pages of this notebook. And it was very satisfying to be finishing that notebook. I'm really happy that I wrote that much. It was such a relaxing thing to do. I was just looking at information, learning stuff for no other purposes, just to increase my own knowledge. The next part of this video is about how I made my new commonplace book. As you can see, I decided to use bits of a Discbank notebook I bought at Action, the discount store. I took the notebook apart, just reusing the discs because I didn't like the color of the cover nor the lined paper that was in it. I wanted to use doff paper. I had this Rhodia paper pad that I had bought when I was at university and wasn't using very much. I liked the format of the pages, and I really wanted to have a commonplace book with a clear cover. I had been watching a lot of Megan Rhiannon videos, and she was in that period where she was using little clear binders, and I just really wanted to buy clear binders, but I really was trying to be reasonable and not buy a new binder system, because if you buy those little clear binders, you need a specific hole punch and you buy specific paper, specific covers. So I thought, I don't even know if I'm going to like it. So I wanted to make something up and see if I liked it, and if I really liked it and wanted to buy the cover later or the hole punch, I would. So I went looking for some plastic I could use for the clear cover, and I found this. I'm not sure what it was. It was just something I had kept, and it was very thick, very solid, and I liked that it was clear but had a little white tinge to it. As you can see, cutting it with my craft knife was quite easy. What was more difficult was to round the corners because the plastic was very thick. And then I tried to use my Discbound system hole punch, but it could not punch hole in that plastic, so I decided I had to do it by hand. And that was one of the other reasons I didn't want to buy binders, because I had bought that hole punch that was quite expensive and I had not used it that much, I found. So I really wanted to use it and not have 23 different hole punches in my office. And the solution I came up with to have my Discbound holes was to use my one hole punch holder as well as my craft knife and a pair of scissors to have those holes, but it was quite difficult. The one hole punch wasn't very sturdy, so I went looking in the house and I found this, I don't know how you can call it, it's not a hole puncher, it's something that you use to work on leather when you want to punch a new hole in your belt, for example. And this worked much better than my hole punch. It was still a fussy thing to do, but it worked, and it took me some time, but I'm glad I reused stuff I had already lying down at home that I had collected from other projects, and I did not spend any money for that new commonplace book system. As you just saw in the video, I started by using those dot grid pages, and I had to cut them to size, and I thought I would enjoy using dot grid pages because I had used them at university and enjoyed them. But as I started writing in my notebook, I found the dot grid pages so distracting. I found them so full and I really hated it. start, I had a cheap notebook I had gotten from a loyalty program that had lines that were almost the correct size for my commonplace book that I decided to use. And I don't remember why I did not film decorating this cover, but I wanted to show you anyway how it turned out. I have been using that commonplace book since March and I've been really enjoying it. For the cover, I used my favorite paper grid tape from Journal Say, this leaf sticker and some of this fountain pen scribbling tape. I used my label maker from Emma and I love how simple that cover is. I had just done my reading journal cover when I was doing that cover. My reading journal cover was so busy that in reaction I really wanted that one to be super simple. I used some off-white paper that was some paper left from printing my own cards from my Etsy shop, and I was glad to be using something that I would otherwise have put in the recycling. I had already wrote down pages on the dot grid paper, so I copied them back on the lined paper, and the lines are a light red, I would say, and that does not really bother me. As you can see, I'm using the same layout I was using in my notebook. I have a little header that's closed down here. I have a title. I haven't written down number of pages yet because I'm not sure what to do with that, and I'm still using the little sticker dots here. As you can see, I still have them at the back of my notebook. I have the same legend almost. Sciences also has birds now. Sociology, I've added that it's for current affairs, and that's, I think, the only modifications I made. I do not remember how I came upon Frances Wolferston, but I was fascinated about everything I read about her. Frances Wolferston was born in England in the 17th century, and she was a book collector, and it was pretty rare to have a female book collector at the time and to be able to reconstruct her collection nowadays. And learning about her life, about the inscriptions she made in her books and that her female descendants made in her books was fascinating. I found a great resource done by 2 researchers that I will link down below, and I thought these 3 pages were it about her, but then I found other articles and they were so interesting and I could not stop write about her. I added this bit that was found in one of her books. I printed it and then I hole punched the left of it so I could have it as a leaflet. I did a page about one of her descendants, and I have 2 dots because it is history, but at the same time it's about literatures. And as you can see, I added even more pages and this was just great. Now, this is empty, and normally if it had been in a notebook, I would have maybe filled it. This is a system where I can move a page and place it where I wish. I don't have to fill everything. If I found more information about that family and about their books, I will have space to do it. And I want to do like categories in this commonplace book. I'll be able to have all the history together, all the art, all the literature, all the music, and this is going to be so great. The next page I did was about Thérèse Pelletier, who is a female pilot. I was still on my female pilot kick from before. I left some empty pages and then I started another section. I used some of my scrap paper again to make sort of a divider. I haven't written down anything on it yet. I'm not sure how to do it. And this section was about birds. As you would have seen in my previous videos, I really like birds. I've been drawing birds. I've been selling cards and stickers on my shop about them. I volunteer at a bird observatory to learn about how to band birds, and I extract birds from nets, and I just found birds so fascinating, so elegant, so beautiful. And as I was spending a few months in France, I wanted to learn more about the birds I could find in my parents' garden. I could have done a seamless transition, pretending that this clip was just a continuation of the previous one, but it's the next day. Now I have nail polish on and I had to stop filming yesterday, so now I'm gonna finish the video. I'm not sure exactly what I was talking about. I was talking about the birds, saying I wanted to learn more about them because they were in my parents' garden. So I identified a lot of them. I wrote down the French and the English name as well as the Latin one. I wrote some information about them in French. I'm not sure that's very useful, but I wanted to have some text. And I printed pictures of both male and female birds because sometimes they look very different. I tried to use my own pictures when I had them, and this was very nice to learn about the birds. As you can see from these loose pictures, I have not finished and I have quite a bit of birds to still do, but this was really nice to learn about them. And it was also really nice because I've been referring to it quite a bit. I want to do the same thing here in Canada, and I'm going to have a lot of birds because I know a lot more birds here. So this is going to be fun. So that was the last category of my commonplace book for now. At the end of the book, I have a few pages from when I started the book. You have those Dot Creek pages, and here I had done a page on Thérèse Pelletier, the pilot, and I cut out the picture to reuse it on my pages so I didn't have to print it again. And here it is. I hope you enjoyed this video. I was really happy to show you what I had done in my commonplace book, and I'm very proud of what I done with this book. It saved me for a moment to want to buy a clear binder. I must confess I still want one. I still want to have the pretty binder and the hole puncher and a system that's easier than what I'm doing right now, but I'm really trying to cut down on the stuff I'm buying. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!